Girl, look what you did.
Welcome back to another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube page, Dave Smith Unleashed. And we love hearing from you. We love reading your comments. And we also love reading your comments on my Twitter page, @DaveSportsGuy. Well, the Sherrone Moore situation, I'm sure you've all heard it by now. The head coach of the University of Michigan. Now, I've never liked him as a coach. When he took over for Jim Harbaugh a couple of years ago, when Harbaugh was suspended over the spying thing, the spying nonsense as far as I'm concerned, with Connor Stallions. And remember that first game he took over for Penn State, he didn't run the ball one time in the second half. He's way too conservative, doesn't throw enough. You know, Underwood, the freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood this year, I think is superstar potential, and he was held back by the coach. And all he does is hand off and throw short swing passes and bubble screens. So I never thought he was a good coach. When I read at first that he was fired with cause, I said to myself, Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportations. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment for all your shipping, trucking, and freight needs. There's only one business to call, and that's MTS Transportations at 800-640-6873. MTS Transportations, 800-640-6873. Either there's a lot more to this than we're being told, or maybe this is a situation where they wanted to get rid of him, and it's like they're trying to scare him like LSU did to Brian Kelly. We're not going to pay you what we owe you. We're going to say it's with cause, and you know what? That will insinuate you did something wrong, and you'll cave. Well, Brian Kelly didn't cave because he didn't do anything wrong except not win enough games. Sherrone Moore, as the news started to come in, wow. Now, allegedly, he was involved in a sexual relationship with his executive assistant. She wound up getting an abortion, after threats from him, allegedly. And then after she terminated the pregnancy, and by the way, he's married with 3 daughters, by the way. After she terminated the pregnancy, she received a pay raise because of his approval from $50,000 to $90,000 a year. How suspicious does that look? And before that, before she became an executive and assistant, and we're not going to say her name's out there and her name's all over the place, but it hasn't been proven yet that it's her. So until it has, I'm not going to say her name here yet. But the pay raise from $50,000 to $90,000, and before she became an executive assistant, she was in charge of. She was working in the recruitment program, making the transition easier for recruiting. Well, we can make all kinds of assumptions from that, can't we? If she was sleeping with the head coach, a married man, by the way, with 3 kids. And the allegations here are unbelievable. From the stuff that's coming out. Evidently, his wife obviously is furious. He threatened to kill himself. Then, allegedly, he threatened to kill the side piece and himself with a knife to her throat until she got an abortion. So we got domestic violence. We've got, I don't know what to say attempted murder, but certainly a physical assault with a knife. And, I looked at his IG page after this came out, and it was still up as we're recording today. And Sherrone Moore, he's followed by, and he follows a bunch of OnlyFans models, a bunch of influencers, a bunch of IG models. That would be a red flag to me right away before I ever hired him if I were Michigan. So he's dead meat. I mean, if this is true, he knocked up his executive assistant, got her pregnant. She got an abortion because he threatened her. Then after he was fired, he told his wife that he was going to commit suicide. Then going to the side piece's house and saying he's going to kill both of them, himself and her. Wow, I've never seen a story like this in college football. We had the Rick Pitino situation. Remember, Rick, what was her name? Rick Pitino met a woman in an Italian restaurant in Louisville. Yeah, Karen Cipher. Yeah, I wrote it down. 15 minutes after they met for the first time, he was banging her on top of a table at the Italian restaurant. Bang, bang, bang. Is he going to get caught? Well, he's in a small town like Louisville, and he's Rick Pitino, and he's a national championship coach. I think people know who he is. And he wound up losing his job and being banned from basketball for years. Now he's back and he's coaching at St. John's and doing a pretty good job. But he had a long time being out of basketball. And the Bobby Petrino situation. Remember, he had a side piece who he worked with at Auburn on his motorcycle, and he crashed it. That's how he got caught. But this one, I mean, with the threats of violence and knives to the throat and forced abortions, this is something like I've never seen before. Now we have to ask ourselves, what did the University of Michigan know, and when did they know it? Now, the athletic director, Ward Manuel, had to have known about this, because I went back and looked, and there were lots of tweets and lots of innuendo and stuff from a month, 2, 3 months ago. There's even people saying over a year ago people knew. And there was a tweet on December 1st. Well, our coach knocked up his assistant, and big trouble is ahead. And a guy named Robert Carrion, he was a quarterback recruit at Michigan in the 1970s. He was a scholarship player, and he stayed close to the program now, and he's involved. Well, he put out a tweet that said, and this is on December 2nd, 2 weeks before the news broke, the scandal was covered up by Athletic Director Ward Manuel and the Board of Trustees. All of them should be fired. Clean it up. Sincere 100%. He turned out to be right. And this is 2 weeks before the news broke. So obviously, the school knew about it. The athletic director knew about it. The Board of Trustees knew about it. And if this is true, all of them should be fired, of course. Now this begs another question. Had he beaten Ohio State, had he made the field of 12, had he taken them to the college football playoff, would the cover-up have continued, and would he have been fired? I don't think so. Well, Dave, you threatened someone with a knife and suicide and domestic. Well, this was after he was fired. I think in a panic. This was after he was fired. If he hadn't been fired, he wouldn't have gone off and threatened his wife and threatened the side piece and pulled knives on people and threatened to commit suicide. So it leads me to, if this were Nick Saban, would he have been fired? If this were Kirby Smart? If this were one of the top coaches in college football? I think this is a good excuse for Michigan because he's not a good coach, and a lot of people wanted him out, and this is the excuse to do it with cause, and they don't have to pay him. Would he have remained the coach had he beaten Ohio State, say gone undefeated and been in the play? I certainly would say yes. If this cover-up is what it looks like, if the athletic director knew and the Board of Trustees knew and they did nothing about it. And now they're saying, well, there was no evidence when we did our initial investigation. There was no evidence to fire or to discipline Coach Moore. But we got an anonymous phone call, a tip a couple of days ago. If you believe that, if you believe that, Dave Smith will be president of the United States in 2028. Now, this is big. The Citrus Bowl is coming up on December 31st for Michigan. The 15-day transfer portal, January 2nd to the 16th. The National Signing Day is February 4th. They could lose. And anybody they've signed here and who signed a letter of intent is allowed to get out of it and leave with no penalty now, since the coach was fired. And the Michigan job is now open. Now, who would be the candidates here? Now, off the top of my head, I'm thinking Kalen DeBoer, Jesse Minner, Brian Kelly, although I wouldn't go there if I were them. Mike Elko, from A&M. Joe Brady, whom I've always liked, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills and formerly with LSU when Joe Burrow was there. Kirk Cignetti, of course, would be at the top of the list, but I don't think he would leave Indiana for a rival Big Ten school, especially after signing that massive new extension. I'll throw a name out there. How about Urban Meyer? How delicious would that be? How sweet would that be if he went to coach Michigan, Ohio State's arch rival? But I don't think he wants to coach again. And if you're looking at the Kalen DeBoer situation, he's a Midwest guy. He's from the Midwest. He's not an SEC guy. He's not a Southern guy. And, from everything I read, he's very unhappy. He's miserable down there in Alabama. There's so much pressure on him. Now, if he leaves and takes the Michigan job, now what are we looking at? Lane Kiffin has always dreamed of that Alabama job. It's his dream job. That's the one he's always wanted when he was working with Nick Saban. Would he jump and stab LSU in the back and screw them over the way he did Ole Miss? You're damn right he would, because Lane's an out for himself, selfish, how can I better myself type of guy. I guarantee you, if Kalen DeBoer leaves, Lane Kiffin will be Alabama's coach next year. He's going to find a way to make it happen. Woo! These are days you live for, huh? As podcast host and sports talk show host. Wow, what a bombshell. And every Michigan fan I've talked to today, so this is great. Not great that he cheated on his wife and hurt his wife and daughters. For football reasons, this is great that he's gone because he can't coach, which I agree with. We all wanted him gone. And now they can fire him with cause. They don't have to pay him what they owe him, and they can do a national search. Kalen DeBoer evidently is at the top of the list. Jesse Minter, the former defensive coordinator for Harbaugh at Michigan, now the defensive coordinator with the Chargers, still with Harbaugh. Clark Lee, what about him from Vanderbilt? Matt Campbell, the new Penn State hire, is the ink dry yet on that contract? Maybe Michigan's a better job, in my opinion. Dabo Swinney, he went 6-6 this year. He's on the hot seat at Clemson, maybe. Wow. Something else. Sherrone Moore fired. Has a side piece. Got her pregnant. She gets an abortion. After the abortion, he raises her pay from $50,000 to $90,000. Red flags everywhere. The athletic director, he had to have known, Ward Manuel. There were tweets about this 6 weeks ago. A former Michigan player, Robert Carrion, said, scandal covered up by Manuel and the Board of Trustees. Fire all of them. Clean it up. My sources are 100%. And he was right, and he posted that on December 2nd. So Sherrone Moore is gone. He spent the night in jail, evidently, after... Evidently, he didn't take it well that he was found out and that he was fired. But what did he expect? If you're banging your executive assistant while you're married with 3 daughters, of course it's going to come. And she terminates the pregnancy? Yeah. He richly deserved what he got. Now, will he ever coach again? Who knows? I think he can get a job as an assistant. Maybe he can work his way back up. Who knows? But if this is true, that Michigan covered this up, Ward Manuel should be fired, everybody in the Board of Trustees should be fired, and they should clean house at the University of Michigan. What do you think? Go to my Twitter page, at Dave Sportscott, of course, and make sure you go to our YouTube page, at Dave Smith Unleashed, at the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast for all the information. Wow, Sherrone Moore, what were you thinking?